This is a community-supported legal education channel. Find out how you can support our mission at the links in the description below.
So did you know that there was an ICANN scandal? Do you even know what ICANN means? Or what ICANN is? Am I even talking about the same ICANN you're thinking of? Of course, I'm talking about the Internet Consortium of Assigned Names and Numbers. Now, this was an organization, actually, we should look it up on YouTube. This is an organization that was formed many years ago, I don't know, 25 years ago, 21 years ago, to adjudicate disputes, well, the assignment and disputes over names and numbers, domain names and IP addresses. So that is ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, a non-profit organization responsible for coordinating the maintenance and procedures of several databases related to namespaces and numerical spaces on the Internet. So they administrate the DNS system and top-level domains, including the assignment of vanity domains, which is a new thing. There's new vanity top-level domains, and now we have the privatization. A company is going to be managing .org names as well, and so now we have a recent dispute. If you buy domain names, you know that the price is relatively low, 10 or 11 bucks for a domain name. But, how much can prices increase every year? Well, the ICANN has decided to remove limits on price increases on domain names. And many people are upset about that. And we're going to read what their reasoning is and see, should we really be upset about that? Let's find out. Consideration of reconsideration request 19.2, the .org and .info renewal. Whereas Namecheap, the requester, has filed a consideration request challenging ICANN organization's 2019 renewal of the registry agreements with Public Interest Registry and Affiliates Limited for the .org and .info generic top-level domains, insofar as the renewals eliminated the historic price caps on domain name registration fees for .org and .info. Whereas the requester claims that ICANN's decision to ignore public comments to keep price caps in legacy generic top-level domains is contrary to ICANN's commitments and core values, and ICANN should reverse this decision for the public good. The requester also asserts that ICANN staff failed to consider material information concerning the nature of .org and security issues with new generic top-level domains when it executed the renewed agreements. Whereas the Board Accountability Mechanisms Committee previously determined that the request is sufficiently stated and sent the request to the Ombudsman for consideration in accordance with their laws and bylaws. Whereas, according to those bylaws, the Ombudsman accepted the request for consideration and after investigating concluded that the CEO and staff acted within the scope of the powers given to them by the board, and that no rules or duties of corporate governance were violated. So in other words, they're trying to say that this decision is solid. Whereas the board previously issued a proposed determination denying reconsideration because of the execution of the agreements did not contradict their bylaws. The board's action was taken in lieu of their substantive evaluation of the request. Whereas the board has carefully considered the merits of the request and all relevant materials, and it reaffirms its conclusions that it did not contradict its bylaws. So it is sticking with its decision and saying we made the decision according to our rules and we didn't violate our rules, and so we don't have to reconsider anything. Okay, let's continue and see what maybe they have to reconsider or not. The full factual background is set forth in Request 19-2, which is incorporated here. The board evaluated the request and all relevant materials and issued a proposed determination denying reconsideration because ICANN's execution of the renewed agreements did not contradict its bylaws. Got that? We read all of that. The renewals are consistent with their commitments. There is no evidence to support the requester's conclusory assertion that ICANN did not act for the public benefit when it omitted price caps from the .org and .info agreements. As discussed in further detail in the final determination, which is incorporated herein, on the contrary, the evidence demonstrates that ICANN sought community consultation regarding the proposed changes and reviewed and considered all 3,700 comments received. Now, from the news articles I read, it seems like they received 3,000 comments against the caps being eliminated. So only 700 comments were in favor, and 3,700 comments were against their proposed removal of the caps. At least until I see more, that's what I'm going to be assuming is the ratio. ICANN staff presented and discussed the key issues raised in the public comment process and correspondence, including removal of price caps, with the board before executing the renewed agreements. The board ultimately decided to proceed without price caps despite public comments opposing this approach. And that does not render the public comment process a sham or otherwise demonstrate that ICANN failed to act for the public benefit. ICANN staff's careful consideration of the public comments, as reflected in its report of public comments and discussion with the board, demonstrate the exact opposite, namely that the inclusion of price caps was carefully considered. Further, the report of public comments demonstrates ICANN staff's belief that it was acting for the public benefit by promoting competition in the registration of domain names, providing the same protections to existing registrants afforded to registrants of other top-level domains, and treating the registry operator equitably with registry operators of new gTLDs and other legacy gTLDs utilizing the base. There is no support for the requester's assertion that ICANN's staff belief in this regard was based on conclusory statements not supported by evidence. ICANN considered Professor Carlton's 2009 expert analysis of the base agreement, and specifically his conclusion that limiting price increases was not necessary, and that the increasingly competitive field of registry operators in itself would serve as a safeguard against anti-competitive increases in domain name registration fees. So again, they're trying to say that they expect there to be significant competition among domain name registrar companies or domain name registrars, and that competition will serve to keep registration fees low. I have my doubts, but I'm no economist, so I'm not going to be able to come up with some kind of great argument one way or the other, whether the fees are going to suddenly skyrocket or eventually get out of control, or whether this is going to become like a conglomeration of power and people who have money are going to be able to buy all the domains, and then people who don't have money are going to be completely kept out of the market. I couldn't tell you if that's what's going to happen or not, but definitely let us know in the comments below. Let's continue. And they are saying that the renewed agreements are consistent with their core values. There is no evidence to support the requester's assertion that omitting the price caps contradicts the core value of seeking and supporting broad, informed participation, reflecting the functional, geographic, and cultural diversity of the Internet at all levels of policy development and decision-making to ensure that the bottom-up, multi-stakeholder policy development process is used to ascertain the global public interest, and that those processes are accountable and transparent. Now, why does ICANN exist? Shouldn't the government that owns the internet just set up an agency? Well, I think this was a solution to try and avoid over-regulation and governments around the world having to set up internet regulators. So instead we have one non-governmental organization that does the job a government would set up. And so it has to obey some kind of due process or transparency or something, like legally speaking. And then at a practical level, they're doing it to avoid regulation. So if they don't do it properly, some government is just going to step up and just start regulating them, and therefore regulating the internet. As discussed in further detail in the final determination, ICANN did seek broad, informed participation through the public comment process. Okay, so they say that so how many of these comments then, if you got 3,000 comments against, I mean, I know it's not an up-down vote, but if you got 3,000 comments against and 700 for, couldn't you at least issue an explanation explaining why those 3,000 comments were disregarded in favor of the 700 comments? The requester has not demonstrated that ICANN failed to seek or support broad participation. So they're saying that their job was to get broad participation and then to make a ruling. Do you remember when the FCC did this? Ajit Pai got hundreds of thousands of public comments and then completely ignored them and just ruled the way he wanted. I think that's actually a constitutional violation. But again, ICANN is not a United States government or non-government organization. It is an international non-government organization. ICANN's statements concerning the purpose of public comments do not support reconsideration. The board finds that there is no support for the requester's assertion that omitting the price caps is contrary to their statement on the public comment proceeding, that the purpose of this public comment proceeding is to obtain community input on the proposed .org renewal agreement. ICANN's decision not to include price caps does not mean that ICANN failed to obtain community input or use the public comment to guide implementation work of ICANN. It is clear that ICANN actively solicited community input, but they don't say anything about whether they have to take it into account. So it's the FCC thing all over again. We did what we're supposed to do and nothing more, and you can't complain about it. Case closed. So either that's our fault for not making the rules clear enough for them, or they're taking advantage. Because remember, this is a 23-year-old organization that has been doing fine up to now, and now all of a sudden they're changing policies, even though the overwhelming majority, seriously overwhelming majority of comments and participants were against the removal of price caps. The requester has not demonstrated that ICANN acted without consideration of material information. They just say that there was no evidence, so they disregard any of the 3,000 comments that made all that. The requester has not demonstrated that it has been adversely affected. They just made the decision, so how could someone be adversely affected by it yet? The rebuttal does not raise arguments or facts that support reconsideration. The 5 arguments that are made, none support reconsideration. The requester's rebuttal reiterates arguments that the board addressed, which I'm guessing they've addressed about 5 times above, too. In the course of engaging with a legacy registry operator on renewing its agreement, ICANN prefers to and proposes that the registry operator adopts the new form of registry agreement that is used by new gTLDs as a starting point for negotiations. All registry agreements include a presumptive right of renewal clause. This clause provides a registry operator the right to renew the agreement at its expiration period as long as it is in good standing and it is subject to the terms of their presumptive renewal clauses. The board wants to specifically discuss here whether there was a past understanding that legacy gTLD agreements would be renewed in the new form of agreement used by new gTLDs. The new form includes several enhancements that benefit the domain name ecosystem, such as better safeguards in dealing with infrastructure abuse, emergency backend support, as well as adoption of new bilaterally negotiated provisions that ICANN and the gTLD registry stakeholder group conduct from time to time for updates to the form of the agreement. None of this addresses whether they took those comments seriously. None of this addresses that. All they're saying here is that the rules say we have to have a comment period. We did, end of case. That just seems a little bit disingenuous to me. This is the organization that manages these things. I don't see why they shouldn't feel like they owe us an explanation more than just, well, we operated within our rules, so we can do whatever we want. As long as we make a notice and comment period, we can do whatever we want, is not the answer I was looking for. So if the answer is in there someplace, it was very unclear, so unclear that I didn't get it. And if the further answer is in another document or something, well, obviously they've hid it there so that we don't have to see it here. I don't understand that either. I'm pretty sure there wouldn't be further explanation then. Otherwise they would have put it here. They seem to pretty comprehensive document here. But you saw how long this was. This was really long. They repeated themselves many times. And really all that they said was, we followed our procedures, so you can't complain about it. That seems really disingenuous for the company that manages internet names and numbers. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Am I overreacting? I don't even really know what the effect of removing price caps is. I just feel like they did this in a weird way. Like they asked for feedback, everyone gave feedback, and they went with the opposite of the majority of the feedback. Again, it's not an up-down vote, but they also didn't further explain, which is not required, apparently, but also really weird. Let me know what you think. All right, well, that is our show. Thank you for joining me. I am Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney. I appreciate you putting up with my set and trying to be quiet as my partner is sleeping in the room next door, so I hope I wasn't too quiet, and I certainly hope I wasn't too loud to sleep the slumbering Loch Ness monster, as Brandon has recently described her. So thank you very much to all of our supporters. This channel would not be possible without your direct financial contributions on patreon.com/ljfrench and sponsors.com/law. Thank you to our December $50 plus supporters: Aspernari, John Steele, Gavin Barnard, Eevi, Kyle Mudrak, Michael Pearce, Spirit Bear, Jan Negrey, Daniel Perez, Snorre Wisotzky, Blackleaf, Joe Tyson, Benjamin Hitov, Stephen, Rumble in the Bunghole, and Cute Grills in your area. Thank you very much to all of our supporters. The $50 and $5 plus supporters will be scrolling on the screen in front of me, and you will all appear in the description of the videos. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your support. I love you all. I'm Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney. Have a good one.